So, while they blabber on about this, I just realized a thing that I didn't mention. X6 is the only one that doesn't have those boss subtitle things.
That's so fun.
I guess to make up for the fact that each boss in X5 had 3 names. Ah!
God damn it.
So, we're getting shared some more exposition. Did you have any questions about that?
Why is Isaac so flat?
Because he has no character whatsoever.
God, just so flat.
So very much, probably, maybe Dr. Wily's ghost in Robot, but not.
So, what the fuck's going on right now? Exactly.
This is, like, one of the most unclear-ish cutscenes. Like, right now they're basically both talking about experimentation stuff, and the success rate is 99.98%, which isn't perfect, and I don't know if they're talking about, like, making more DNA soul-based Reploids, or if they're upgrading Hymax, or if it has to do with, like, the boss, the Fortress-related stuff later on, or if it has to do with, like, Gates compatibility, or what, but, yeah.
So it's foreshadowing that foreshadows nothing.
Sort of, maybe. And then now they're talking about, like, oh, well, within, like, just a couple hours, Hymax could take over every Reploid on Earth, which I assume means beat and control, like, via force and not, like, possession or anything like that, since Hymax doesn't show any traits of nightmare possession sort of stuff like the actual nightmares do. So yeah, it's really basically just long bullshitting right now. And now this is more into Isaac's obsession with Zero. It's like, have you found that thing you're looking for? Yeah, spoilers, it's Zero, he's looking for Zero. And Gates like, oh, it must not exist. And Isaac's like, oh, he does, like, I know, it's just that thing. And then he's talking about how, like, he wouldn't die in such a trivial battle, even though he was more than in half and also a hole in him. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's fine. Like, going off the background, they're really hotboxing right now, so they're just high as balls, just discussing the most inane shit.
Isaac's eyes are real bloodshot.
Oh god, yeah. All 3 of them.
God. I'm glad we're off to such a thunderous start right now. Is there anything in the goddamn book that I can talk about? Gate represents a merging of scientists and combatants. He was one of my personal favorites, so I was very disappointed when I found out that he wouldn't be in any sequels. It's kind of spoilers, I guess. That might be why I included him in the illustration for the soundtrack CD. It's one of the artists said that. So, there's your trivia. I talked about Isaac and Gate, and there's another Gate one, but I'll save that for later.
Like, didn't... Oh, fuck, what's his name? From 3. Doctor in 3.
Dr. Doppler?
Doppler. He was also science and better buddy.
Yeah, but well, I guess he did have a line code. Also, it's everybody's favorite level.
This music gives me non-flashbacks.
This music gives me museum flashbacks. I love that. It's dead quiet, and then just that music blaring over life itself. This one is... Everybody knows about the museum. So, the main thing that makes the museum shitty is the stage itself, the basic stage, is basically just 4 ramps, some spikes at the end, and these ghost totem pole things that they're talking about right now.
Ghost totem poles.
And then the boss shutter. Sorry.
Nightmare totems.
I think they actually are called nightmare totems.
Fuck me.
They were just talking about it. When you go through one of the nightmare totems, you end up going into one of these rooms. These rooms are random. They randomize, I think, based on your current state in the level. So, like, when I launch in now, unless I quit, go to the map, and then come back into this stage, like, via refresh that way, I'm pretty sure this will always be this pattern. There are sub-versions of each of these rooms. The general layout is the same, but then, like, the hole in the wall will be in a different spot, or, like, that destroyable block right ahead might not be there. Things like that, like basic changes. Rescue Reploids are in the basic layouts, but the queue...
But the arrangement's overall.
Layout and arrangement. Yeah, so the arrangement of the room doesn't matter, but the overall layout is what determines, like, okay, there's an item here, or a Reploid here. There are 12 of them, I think. So you have to cycle this stage a lot, and it can happen perfectly in 2 runs. You might get all of the actual items in 1 run, which is fine. If you're going for Reploid completion, then this stage is the worst that way. When we did the irregular recording, my practice run, I got basically everything that I was going for my basic stuff. I wasn't going for all Reploids in that one. I am in this one. I did the practice run, I think, in 2 shots. It isn't bad. In the actual recorded run, this stage on its own took almost an hour and a half. So, basically, fuck this level.
I can't wait to edit that.
It's gonna be great, because, well, actually, it didn't really happen that badly in this one, so...
It took a while at the end, but you won't be seeing any of that, because I'm a kind and benevolent god.
Yeah, it's not like we're gonna be showing all of it, but basically that's the gimmick of this, and then there's 4 different environments, which are represented solely by those flashing backgrounds, which is just a huge pain in the ass.
Also, this stage can be completely unwinnable.
Yeah, this is one of the several instances of, I love that jump. One of the several instances in X6 where you can come in and have it be in an unwinnable state. So there's a room variation where there's an overhang, like a pillar coming down from the ceiling, and then a bottomless pit, that unless you have a specific armor or part set up, or I think even one of the Nightmare Phenomenons can technically help you across, you literally cannot jump over the gap, and you can't shuffle the stages in a helpful way. So basically, if you get that, you're screwed, and you have to dump yourself into the pit and kill yourself.
This is a good game.
Yeah, and again, that's not the only instance of an unwinnable by accident state that can happen. That's just one of the more famous ones. The other being Hymax, which we'll cover in a little bit. But luckily, I don't run into any of that. So
yeah, we ran into that a bunch in the irregular
in the irregular version recording, it comes up a whole shit ton. So if you want to learn more about that, just go watch me stream in that.
Because I honestly might not even edit that. Just here's the museum in all its awful glory.
Well, not in all, but... So, I luck out there and get the heart tank. None of the rooms are overly samey, so, like, generally you can tell which one you're in at the start, even though everything looks the same tile set-wise. The heart tank is in that sloping upward.
Right.
There's a sloping downward room, there's one where you immediately have to jump up to a ladder, there's a bunch of different patterns, but for the most part, you'll know where you're at.
Wasn't this the stage that made you switch back to the Naked X?
Yes. So there are a bunch of spots. I don't know if I do this recording. There's a bunch of spots in this one where the nightmares will pretty easily overtake rescue Reploids unless you act quickly, and the Falcon Armor's narrow charge shot, the reason that I'm against that in this game is because it makes hitting the nightmares a lot more difficult than it needs to be hitbox-wise, and I kept losing them in practice runs, so I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna see what happens if I go through his unarmored X so I have a charge shot that's bigger than a pin, and it actually helps out a lot. So if I'm going through a stage with unarmored X in this one, it means that I'm using it for hitbox purposes more than anything else. It's also kind of a nice way to visually mix things up. But
especially since I think the hitboxes for the nightmares are just the black chest. Like, not the head, not the tendrils at all.
I think you can hit the head. I might be wrong about that. The tendrils, you're definitely. So, the larger hitbox really is just invaluable for certain things. And again, if you don't care about the rescue Reploids, then it's not nearly as much of an issue. I do.
I think both 6 and 7 are a lot better if you don't care about 100% at all.
Yeah, which is a shame, because they're, well, that depends.
Better. Not good.
The parts that the Reploids drop are vitally important in both games. So, like, less so in this one, but it's still present. Also, I have to point out, I'm legally obligated to point out that it's awesome that the capsule in there is right next to the T-Rex skull. So, there's that.
That's fair.
Is Burnt Dino Rex back from the dead to hang out with us, I guess?
But in skeleton form, so
Yeah.
still dead.
What? You can be back from the dead as a skeleton. That happens in horror movies all the time. So this is the worst nightmare totem, just by virtue of the spikes. Hitting the bottommost ones is a pain. I think I end up just, like, tanking damage. Like, I'm going through, trying my best to use my brain, but, luckily I don't die, and there is that health right there, and then, Scaravich is... I don't want to say a pushover, but a pushover. I like his concept.
I get it. It's a pun.
That
pushes things.
wasn't my intention at all. It actually genuinely isn't. But yeah, he's got cool structure, design-wise. I like the use of the wire hooks to get over him, and I like how they handle him as a dung beetle. But he only really does the one thing, so it's kind of boring once you do it a couple times. He's fun to Buster Duel, but...
He also has a creepy-ass face on
yeah,
the sprite.
on the actual sprite, he's really weird to look at. It took me forever to realize he was, like, looking back at you, and it's horrible.
Always watching. Always.
Even from behind the ball. But yeah, normally he's weak to, for whatever reason, Yammer option. I don't really understand why.
Fuck it.
It might maybe have to do with, like, somehow dragonflies are the natural enemy of this type of beetle. I doubt it, but I won't be bothering with that. Not because it's any better or worse, just because I think at the time I didn't realize it. I just kind of felt like Buster dueling him, so... It's not a hard fight either way, so it's not like I'm struggling because of it. I think the main benefit of hitting him with his weakest weapon is he'll dodge to the other side like that, but he'll do it slightly more often instead of retreating sometimes, so you get a few more hits off on him with a slightly higher rate of damage. But, again...
I comment more about, like, the boss's backstory and shit and characterizations, but trying to commentate and read text at quarter resolution and trying to read X6's text. So I just... Shit's happening. They're probably all idiots. I don't care.
Well, so the important thing for these bosses is they're all, like, almost brainwashedly loyal towards Gate, so none of them are like, well, I know that I could help you, but I'm not gonna. And, like, some of them do sort of address it, but they're like, look, I can't. Like, I have to do what Gate is telling me to do. And you could kind of interpret that a couple different ways. Like, you could say, like, oh, it's blind loyalty. Or you could say, oh, it's brainwashing. Or, like, they were programmed that way or whatever. But it's not as dumb as it is in, like, 4 and almost more so 5, where it's just like, I know the Earth is ending, but I'm just fight me. It's never that abject, which I appreciate. But who knows? Maybe it was translated badly and they are all stupid. I have no idea.
I don't know about the maybe part.
So, I just got Speedster.
Uh-huh.
That's important. That's one of the important ones. So, good for me. Yeah. So, Scaravich's thing is that he's an expert on, like, ancient reploids and robots and stuff like that, for the most part.
Right.
One of the... Like, they're explaining it. Basically, he goes to excavate in a forbidden area, which is, like, Dr. Light's old lab where they dug up X. I think, yeah, where you were both discovered, which is wrong.
Oh.
It's obviously just a bad translation. But he went in there and wasn't supposed to. And we get some of Alia's first, like, extra character backstory stuff, is that she's the one that ended up, like, sealing him inside of the tomb, and I guess, like, disposing of him that way. Which also kind of brings up what's going on here, is all of these guys were Gates' men, and all of them were destroyed, or, like, assassinated, or killed somehow, and all of them have been resurrected again. So there's a lot of, like, loyalty there. It's like, he literally brought me back from the dead. Like, I have to do this. And it gets kind of interesting with some of them if you feel like...
Sheldon, I think, has...
Sheldon has, like, as kind of goofy as most people think he is, just, like, based on the name and his design, he has a really interesting backstory, in my opinion. And, like, they go into it a pretty good amount in both that end-level blurb and also the text, like, when you're talking to him in person. And I don't know, like, I think if X6 has any one thing outside of the overarching plot in Gate, it'd be, like, I actually am kind of invested in the enemies, more so than the others. And it's, like, not by a lot, there's only so much that'll come up that way, but it's present, and I wish it was like that more.
I just wish we'd get to know how Alia went from wet work operative to dispatch officer.
Yeah, well, and she was also a scientist previously, because well, I don't know if that's come up yet, so I won't mention it yet. But, yeah, she's, at the very least, some kind of, cops. She executed a guy, holy shit! Hey, here's how you navigate the levels. But, that's, again, just more reason to actually be interested in other characters besides just
it's like, Alia, what the shit? Can we go back a second?
Yeah, and she's always, in the mindset of, I didn't want to do this, or, she was tricked into doing it, things like that. So it's alright, that's fine. For all we know, she was instructed, use this device to open the ruins up, and then it, turns out that it explodes the ruins and buries Scaravich inside. She's like, oh my god, I didn't mean to do that, what happened? And then ultimately, oh, you did the thing that we wanted you to do. Whoa. So, who knows? This stage is all about reflecting laser puzzles, which I don't mind. It's an interesting stage gimmick. It can get a little slow and finicky, but as far as nightmare phenomenon goes...
Nightmare lasers!
Yeah. It's cool.
It's not Ayla's stage.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a little tedious. They even say the words, what a painstaking nightmare phenomenon. This is one of the worst ones. Because you basically need to stand right where I'm standing and have it shoot you. You can jump out of the way, but it's I don't want to say a frame-perfect thing, but it's definitely difficult. It also, this highlights a important thing about the lasers in this. You kind of see it in Maginian's stage, more so here. So the only damaging parts of these beams are the flare at the front and the emission point. So if you're standing in the actual straight beam, you don't take any damage. I'm not really sure why, probably because it would make this stage and some later stuff completely, literally unplayable, but that's what happens, so...
Now, these red nightmare boxes...
Yeah, those are a nightmare for me. And I believe they happen because of Scaravich's stage being beaten, so that's a thing. Which also means I'm pretty sure the two stages that affect this stage, or can affect, which I'll explain that a little bit more in depth so you can see more of the phenomenon happening, is from Yamar's stage. Or Yamar. The dragon. His stage will have another effect here. So, we have both possible options.
Yay!
Since we beat that one last, that's the one that's happening. I think that'll be a good collection episode thing to talk about.
Is there anything you could talk about Sheldon from the book? Because...
let's see!
Holy shit, laser puzzles.
Well, the worst part is we're not even fighting Sheldon right now. We're on an alternate route.
It's just... I don't mind the gimmick in principle, but... Holy shit, it takes forever.
No notes specifically on Sheldon.
Thanks, Sheldon.
His full name is Shieldner Sheldon, I guess.
What?
That in the game.
So, what?
I don't know. It's just weird. There you go. There's your trivia. His name is actually longer. No, there's a note on the nightmares. I guess I could talk about them.
By all means.
The design concept for Nightmare was obviously DNA. I can't imagine what a pain in the neck it must have been to do the dot work for this guy. I'd like to offer my sincerest apologies to the fellows who were responsible for these graphics. Laughs. But yeah, there's their official artwork. I honestly kind of like their idea.
I like the design in the artwork, high invisible wall. It doesn't really come across in the sprite, though.
Yeah. So, fun fact. That fucking invisible block, I didn't know that was there forever, and I kept missing it because you expect to jump as far as possible and make leaps of faith and stuff like that, and I guess there's a weapon that can uncover those. I don't know which it is. It might be Meteor Rain, but I can't confirm that right off the top of my head. Someone, I'm sure, will correct me on it. So I would just go into that pit like, well, got this armor capsule, time to die. It's like, good, great. But, there are two tricks there, the invisible block being one of them. Mm-hmm. The other is for that Reploid that I collected that was in that wall, or like above that invisible section, which X does have text that alludes to that. I think I might have skipped it in this one just because it's needlessly dangerous to get to it, but I don't really remember if I got it or not. There's like kind of a weird collision box there that's almost like you're standing on the rim of a bowl. So picture there's 2 high points and then like a middle low point. And if you're standing in that middle low point, you can't jump up and collect him. But if you're standing on the extreme edge, you're higher up and you can jump and collect him. And it's kind of hard to line that up, but you usually have the time to do it. Also, the obvious trick there is to get hit by the Nightmare, grab the heart tank, jump out of the spike so that you don't die and you don't have to come back with any equipment or armor to get it. So that's a nice thing. I'll do something similar right here, or coming up anyway. And I think I missed this solo like a dozen times.
Yep.
Yay! Yeah, so, I guess, Nightmare, they will have... Yeah, I'm gonna get the weapon tank that way. He shoots and jumps down. Also, I didn't realize that those were platforms up there, because it's so close to the top of the screen. If you touch the sides of the spikes, you die, so I always kind of avoid it. Right. But you can get that with earlier parts and stuff like that if you jump to the platforms that they're standing on. I just don't do it here. I might be able to finagle it with that damage boosting thing, but I can't do it reliably, so I didn't want to bother.
God, the range on those things
is inconsistent. Sometimes they will not do stuff like that. That one in particular totally does, which is just amazing.
Great.
Yeah, it's really irritating. It'll happen off screen sometimes too, but again, that's something that I'll point out in areas where it's actually possible. What was I talking about right before that? Before the weapon tank? Oh,
getting the
rescue reploids. No, I think it was something before then.
Who cares? It's Pink Zero.
Oh! While they're doing this, the nightmares will come back once if the soul is still present and you don't collect it, so they technically have 2 lives. If you collect the soul, they won't come back. Like, they'll respawn off screen, but on screen they'll actually phase back in. So, this is Nightmare Zero. He isn't Zero. He's not an infected Zero. You're not beating the sense back into Zero. This is like a Nightmare Phenomenon doppelganger, which kind of makes sense based on how the actual Nightmare effect is going on. So, right now you are fighting a viral phasing duplicate of some kind, like a Nightmare Phenomenon that legitimately thinks it is Zero. And you can fight... So this is the first instance of one of these secret path rooms. Every stage has 2 paths going through those blue going through those blue teleporter things. Once you're on that route, you cannot backtrack to the normal boss, which is how one of the unlimited situations can come up. And it will always take you to one of these alternate boss fight rooms, which I personally think is really cool. I'm not a huge fan of how the stages are designed around them overall, but that's a completely different discussion. Nightmare Zero is always the first one you'll encounter. He can kill you, he won't disappear or anything like that. He's weak to he's weak to Zero's saber. From my experience, you need to use it right before or right after he does a thing in order to actually stun him with it, but I couldn't get it super consistently. He makes a really hilarious sound when you hit him with it, which is my favorite part. And generally you can just stand in a certain spot to have his Earthbreaker attack kind of go around you.
And then actual Zero shows up, completely out of the blue.
Yep.
Like this, I never knew that...
You weren't beating the sense.
Yeah, I thought you were beating the sense out of him. Because of this fucking thing and that fucking face.
Yeah.
But, so, did X know that Pink Zero wasn't real Zero?
I think he was kind of taking it on faith. Because, so, what I was about to explain more of is that each one of the 8 alternate boss rooms will have different dialogue in each one, and it's consistent, it's not randomized. I do eventually want to go through and get all of them, so we've seen one of them, and it kind of shows off different angles of the personality, and it's a little rocky because naturally the translation is bad, and it's not the most consistent thing, but you'll get bits and pieces of different things. So there are instances where Nightmare Zero thinks he is Zero, is confused why X is attacking him, thinks X is a Maverick, or is just like completely Maverick himself and insane, and it's just like, I'm just gonna kill you, I don't even remember who you are, just let's fucking fight. And so you can kind of tell that he's like, really insane and unstable. Like, he's already, like, I'm Zero, but also just, like, batshit. And I think it's supposed to be kind of like an image of the original Maverick virus that comes out of Zero, or, you know, like, Zero was originally Maverick and Berserk and all that. It's just a thing that happens. And I think it's supposed to be lore-wise based on, like, the Zero virus from the end of X5, where it's like, oh, now we've got, like, these little purple duplicates in the Zero space stages that are flying around like Soul Body. I think he's supposed to be, like, a pure version of one of those, and just like, alright, this is me. And X is fighting against him. He's like, this can't be Zero. That doesn't even make sense. He's not even the right fucking color. This is retarded. Why are you all blaming Zero for no reason? We know it's not him. He died. I watched it happen.
And Zero just shows up. It's like, yay!
Yeah, and then that's exactly it. Is like, that's
you're the right color.
Yeah. So X is basically doing most of this to clear Zero's name in the first place. Like, hey, stuff isn't right, and also this is basically slander for a war hero, and also like my best friend. So let's not do that. And everyone else is like, it's totally Zero. It's Zero, and then that's a cover for Isaac looking for the actual Zero, which is what that one cutscene was about. It all kind of ties in. Again, it's really loose, really rough, really badly translated, but that's the gist of what's going on. And I think it's kind of interesting, and it actually makes for an interesting character motivator for X after everything that goes on in 5, where it's like, okay, Zero's dead, and now this is happening. What's really cool is that's how you unlock Zero. So now he's playable, that's what that dialogue is. Like, I know you just returned, but can you help X out? He's like, well, I'm Maverick, that's my job. You don't have to do that. Like, there is literally not a single requirement that you go on any of those alternate paths and, like, actually beat Nightmare Zero to unlock Zero. So there are instances where the game can end and Zero's just still gone and dead. And X doesn't know.
I think there's another ending for that ritual.
Yeah, there actually is, as far as I'm aware. And I don't know, I think that's kind of neat, where canonically Zero can stay dead and X can just be, like, fighting on his memory. But that also kind of makes it, like, almost sad to think about, where, like, X in the beginning sees an image of his friend and then doesn't end up finding out what the hell it was actually about. So, just, like, branching paths. I think the branching paths are way more interesting in this one than X5, personally. But now we got Sheldon and his real cool story. So, I haven't really been going over the bosses in depth. Like I said, I really like this one. X is like, oh shit, I have to fight Sheldon, I can't believe he's back. So you're like, whoa, wait, he knows him? He was a bodyguard for a scientist Reploid, Dr. Jim, which is just a boring-ass name. We do not know what he looks like. There's no art of him anywhere. He's just mentioned in the name. I like to think he looks like Brainbot from the Ruby Spears cartoon, which may be image here. I don't know. So Dr. Jim goes Maverick, and it's explaining it right now, but this is what I want to talk about, so fuck you guys. Dr. Jim goes Maverick, and I don't think Sheldon realizes it right away, so he's still trying to protect the Doctor from the Maverick Hunters who are now attacking him.
I think it was Sheldon realized he went Maverick and started trying to retire him, but the Maverick Hunters didn't. It's like, oh, hey, you've gone Maverick and you're attacking the Doctor.
No, as far... That's possible, too. Basically what it boils down to is Dr. Jim goes Maverick, and the Maverick Hunters misinterpret what Sheldon is doing, so that's either he's still with him or he's attacking him, and then they realize after that. In any case, it works out. And because he couldn't protect the Doctor, he kills himself. It's like, holy shit! Like, that's really sad, like, really dark. I can't believe that's a thing. And I think he's got kind of a cool fight. This part's kind of a pain. My preferred strategy is to just avoid him, which I don't think I actually do here, which is stupid of me.
See, now I'm worried that I might have missed a death. Okay,
no, don't worry about it.
It's like,
perfect, and don't die. Unless needed. There's one or two required, well, quote-unquote required deaths.
Just wait till next episode.
Yeah. But I think that's a really interesting thing, and then it goes into... Honestly, I think kind of a cool fight where, like, he'll reflect things, and you have to kind of play defensively back against a defender. You have to, like, dodge underneath parts of his body and stuff like that. He can do some cool stuff. But his weakest weapon sucks for X. Zero has a glitch exploit with him, and some people say that it's actually good against the bosses. the weakness weapon of. I think it's garbage. I don't think I use it at all in this run. I'll explain it when there's a little bit more time, but...
Dr. Jim.
Yeah, so Dr. Jim was an important person in the scientific community. Suddenly Dr. Jim became a maverick. However, he was able to control himself. Oh, alright. So, yeah. Identified as maverick just because he was treated by a kid. Oh! I don't know, that's a little confusing wording-wise.
I think it was more clear in Sheldon's dialogue.
Yeah.